Easy breezy gorgeous. Hey there and welcome to the Totally Fierce Crochet channel. My name is Thomas and in this video I'm going to show you how to make such a beautiful easy breezy brioche scarflet. If you don't know what a scarflet is, it's quite easy. It's basically the petite version of a regular full scarf. So it's a little bit shorter and smaller, and it's a perfect accessory for spring, summer, or fall. Whenever you don't know, is it too warm, is it too cold, is it somewhere in between, then this is absolutely perfect. You can easily wear it just like I showed it to you by putting it around your neck. You can make a knot in the front or not, that's of course optional. You can push it of course to the side if you want to have it more casual, but of course you can also just wear it like this as a soft and easy breezy spring summer scarf. So ever since I found out how to make the brioche knit stitch, I wanted to create a little project where I can practice it, and I can practice increases and decreases and all those kinds of things. So I came up with this scarflet idea. It starts on the narrow side and then grows just like the flowers in spring to the middle where it gets wider, and you have this beautiful growing texture going on. Very airy, very breathy, just like I promised. Personally, I'm absolutely obsessed how beautiful this texture came out. And of course, I love the color. It's so springy and fun. And to top it off, you will also learn in this tutorial how to make the I-cord border. Some of you have probably heard from the Sophie scarf that also uses the I-cord border, and I incorporated it here just to show you that you can basically do everything with Knooking. And overall, it's just a super fun and easy to make piece. You can of course knit this scarflet if you know how to knit. If you don't know how to knit, I will show you how to Knook it. So are you ready to make yourself an easy breezy brioche scarflet? Let's go! So let me show you how to make the easy breezy brioche scarflet. This was my test piece. I used a merino yarn with lots of colors, so perfect for spring. And initially I wanted to use the same yarn for this tutorial, but I thought it would be too difficult to see the individual stitches. So I'm going to switch to another yarn. We are always going to start from the small side, and then we are going to increase all the way right to the middle, and then at some point start decreasing so we end up the same way like we had it in the beginning to create this super cute and fun scarflet. In the end, you can then just place a knot in the front to wear it, and usually it's wrapped around the neck 2 times, but you are absolutely flexible. You can make it longer, you can make it wider by making more stitches or more rounds. It's completely up to you. The main part, the inner part, is made with the brioche knit stitch all along, and then you get like both sides with the beautiful brioche pattern. The border is made with the I-cord technique. I mean, I hope you can see it. You will later on see it with the other yarn, that's for sure. And for those of you who have, for example, knitted the Sophie scarf, this is exactly the same way how this is done. And it's a beautiful border with this rounded part, very squishy, very soft, and absolutely perfect for this project. And it's super easy. So the yarn that I'm using is from Penguin Pingo First. It's an acrylic. Feel free to use whatever yarn you like. You can also use a lighter cotton yarn, especially if you want to have your scarflet also for the summer month, but for this tutorial I'm going to use this, mainly because I absolutely love the color. And the color is called Melon. I think it's such a pretty color tone, and I'm pretty sure that this scarflet will look absolutely fabulous. They say you need a 3.5 millimeter hook. Of course, choose a hook size that works for your yarn. I'm going to size up my Knooking hook to a 5 millimeter Knooking hook, just to have it a little bit more lacy and soft, just like my test piece here. Then, of course, the yarn needle to sew in those ends and the scissors to cut the yarn. But overall, we are going to start with the narrow side and then go all the way, and basically you have like one yarn end in the beginning and one yarn end in the end, and that's basically it. Everything is made in one go. And what's also helpful is to have a measuring tape, and to start this tutorial I would recommend you to measure your neck size. So my neck is around 45 to 46 centimeters, which is around 18 inches. And in the end, your scarflet should be 3 times the size of your neck. So in my case, 18 times 3, 36, 44, 54 inches in total. And this is something just to keep in mind. We will see after we made the increases for how many, for what width and what length we have, and then we just make some basic rounds in the middle until we have the size of our scarf. So this is just something to remember, and with that we are good to go. So I take my yarn. You don't need to put aside a big amount of yarn because we start with the half I-cord cast on. You will find a detailed video about how to do the half I-cord cast on in my Knooking 101 playlist. And we start with just 6 cast on stitches, and the first one is already on our hook, which is the slip knot that I started with. And then we can make 5 more half I-cord cast ons, and for that we take our end yarn, wrap it around the hook, then take the yarn that goes to your yarn ball and wrap it around from the back, and we just slip stitch through the first loop, and now we have 2. Then again, the end yarn from the front, the yarn that goes to your yarn ball from the back, and slip stitch 3, and we do this 3 more times until we have 6 stitches, because those 6 stitches are also the stitches for our I-cord border. And here we go, our cast on is already done. It's as simple as that. And then of course we can take our work and put it on our helper yarn, turn the work, make sure you know where the working yarn is, and then we are going to grab the first loop, and we are going to make knit stitches in the first 3 loops. So yarn over and pull it through, take the next loop, yarn over, pull it through, and the third one, yarn over, pull it through. And then we are going to take this yarn to the front, and the last 3 loops we are just going to pick them up, because we are going to work them in the next round. So we are always have the round where we only do the first 3 stitches, and then the last 3 we always pick up. And when we then take it on our helper yarn and start the next round, we are going to pick up those not used loops from the previous round, and again we make 3 knit stitches, And then again, we take the yarn to the front, and we are just going to pick up those 3 loops that are left. And this was already it. This was the second round. I will show you one more round. So again, you pick up the first loop. You see that the yarn like goes out right in the middle of the 3 loops. What you can do when you make the knit stitch is to keep it a little bit tight, because those 3 stitches will be rolled together to create our I-cord border. Usually it goes from all by itself. You don't have to do much. It automatically rolls together, but it's okay to just keep it a little bit tight, but that's not a must. Then again, we take the yarn to the front and just pick up those next 3 stitches. This was round number 3. And then we take it on our helper yarn and do the exact same thing. So again, we take the yarn, take it to the front, and make 3 knit stitches. And then again, yarn to the front and pick up those loops. And this was round number 4. And we are always going to work in groups of 20 rounds, so that in the end, because we only do like a stitch one at a time, or one row, or every 2 rows we complete the full side, the front and the back. And you can always count the V stitches on the side. So the first one was our cast on loop, and then we have the 2 stitches up here, which are from our last 4 rounds. So when you have 2 here, it means that you have 4 in total, because 2 on this side and 2 on the other side. And what's also important to remember is the yarn end. No matter if you're left-handed or right-handed, the side, or when this yarn end is at the side where your working hand is, then you always know it's the beginning. When you start from this side, it's the beginning of a round. So this is always like those uneven numbered rounds. So 1, 3, 5, and whenever you start the round where the yarn end is on your non-working hand, you always know it's an even number of rounds. And this is something just to keep in mind to find out where the 20 rounds then are. When I say 20 rounds, I know it sounds a lot, but it's in the end, it's just 10 stitches per round or per segment. And I will meet you once I have my 20 rounds done, and then I will show you how to make the increases. So we are then going out from the center and create our beautiful brioche pattern. But first, let's make 20 rounds. And usually this goes super fast, because it's just 3 knit stitches, and then after the third one, the yarn to the front, and then just continue all along. And if you have made a mistake counting, it doesn't really matter if you made like 1 extra round or 2 extra rounds. It's absolutely okay. And just count it a little bit, and if you lost count, then you can always count the V stitches on the side, and you then see where you are. And I'll see you in a little bit. And here we go, 20 rounds. As you can see, it rolls together a little bit to create this super cute starting point, and also this super awesome border. And now we can start with creating our brioche stitch. If the brioche knit stitch is new for you, then feel free to check out my video, my tutorial in the Knooking 101 playlist. But of course, I'm going to explain everything. First, we now have to make or create our stitches first, and we will do this in the third knit stitch that we have. So we go into the first loop and we just make our 3 knit stitches, just like we had it before. And now we are going to basically increase this last stitch to create 2 more stitches, and for that we are going to yarn over, and then we go back into the same knit stitch where we were, yarn over and pull it through. So in the end, now, and here are the 3 stitches from our I-cord border, and those 2 loops right here are now the beginning of our brioche stitch. Then we can take the yarn back to the front again and just pick up those last 3 loops. So we are not going to change the I-cord border throughout this tutorial. You always pick up those last 3 loops and only work them when you start the round. And now we set the base for our brioche knit stitches. Again, we knit stitch the first 3 loops. Here we go. And then we have like the 2 loops, the 2 next loops are the loops that we just created. And for the brioche knit stitch, when we start, we always yarn over, then we pick up the first loop, and then take the yarn to the back and pick up the next loop and knit stitch. And like that, we take the yarn to the front and pick up the last 3 loops, because this was, which round was it? 22 is already done. But I'm going to show you a few more so you get familiar with how the brioche knit stitch works. Then again, in the beginning of a round, always make the 3 knit stitches. Very easy to remember. Then again, yarn over, yarn to the front, pick up the next loop, yarn to the back, and now we have the next stitch that looks like a double stitch because it has like this crossed yarn right over it. That's actually the real brioche knit stitch, and we are just going to pick both of those loops up and knit stitch through it, so you will always have the knit stitches with both of those loops, and this later on creates this super fluffy texture. Yarn to the front, pick up those 3 loops, and you can already see how it goes out automatically. Just like I mentioned in the intro, I wanted to have something that grows like the flowers in nature, and I think this works absolutely perfect for it. Then again, the next 3 stitches are all knit stitches, and then again we can do our sequence with the brioche. So yarn over and to the front, pick up the next loop, yarn to the back, and here we have our double stitch or double loop right here. Pick them both up and knit stitch, yarn to the front again, and pick up the last 3 loops. I'll show you one more, because in the end, as I mentioned, the sequence is 20 stitches, so we will have 20 of those same rounds until we then increase again. So 3 knit stitches, and then yarn over, yarn to the front, pick up the next loop, yarn to the back, take both of those loops from the next stitch, yarn to the front, and pick up the next 3. And we do this until we have 20 rounds completed, and then we are going to increase again. So see you in a bit. And before I forget it, you can still count the side V stitches, but as soon as we work our knit stitches from the center, you can always count by the brioche knit stitches right here. So here was the first stitch that we took out of our border. Then here's the second stitch and here's the third stitch. So in the end, you know, when you have 3 stitches here, this represents the double amount of rounds. So we already have 6 rounds. And whenever you have 10 stitches on this side, then you know you have the 20 rounds complete. And here we go. As I mentioned before, it goes super fast, and you already see this beautiful texture, and it looks awesome on both sides. Very organic, just like a leaf, and I absolutely love how this turns out, and especially with this super fun melon color. And now we are good to go for our next increase. Again, the full segment is 20 stitches, and of course you only have to increase once and then work the stitch as normal. The beginning is the same, 3 knit stitches, of course. Then yarn over, yarn to the front, pick up the next loop, yarn to the back, and now we are going to, it's the only brioche knit stitch that we have, so we are going to increase this stitch right here. And first we are just going to make our brioche knit stitch, then we yarn over again, bring the yarn to the back, go back into the same stitch, yarn over and pull it through to make the next increase, yarn to the front and pick up those last 3 stitches as we had it before, and then we can turn, and this is the only time where we have to be careful that we get the right loops. Again, 3 knit stitches, here's our new loops. So again, we start with a yarn over, pick up that first loop right here, yarn to the back. Here we have the new knit stitch, so we are going to knit it, then yarn over the hook and in front, pick up the next loop, yarn to the back, and here we have our full brioche knit stitch. Take both of those loops and knit stitch and yarn to the front, pick up those loops, and we already go into the next round, and from there we will have our 2 brioche knit stitches. So 3 knit stitches first, then yarn over and to the front, pick up the next loop, yarn to the back. Here we have now our knit stitch or brioche knit stitch. Take both loops and brioche knit stitch, yarn over and yarn to the front, pick up the next loop, yarn to the back, and here's our next brioche knit stitch right here. Pick up the 2 loops and brioche knit stitch, yarn to the front, and pick up those next loops. And just like that, we made another increase, and we are good to go until we have the next set of 20 stitches. And again, make sure that once you see where this new increase comes out, then you can count it. It's right here, and Then you can count it, and once you have 10 stitches on one side, then you know that the next segment can start. And I'll see you then. And here we go. My scarflet is growing. I think it looks so beautiful, just like a leaf coming out of the center. And here we had our very first brioche knit stitch round, and here now we have the two, and you know what's coming. We are now increasing, and we basically increase until you have the width that you like for your scarflet. I think I will do it until I have 9 of those knit stitches. Here in my sample piece I had 12, and I thought this was a little bit too wide, so I'm going to make 9 for this. And I'll show you one more time how to do the increases. Again, 3 knit stitches to begin with. Now we have the 2 brioche knit stitches, and you can basically increase each of them if you like. You can choose the first one or the second one, and this is completely up to you. Usually for something like this, I would pick like the first one and then continue. When then later on we have 3 brioche knit stitches, I would choose the middle one. So it's really up to you. You can increase whichever you like best. So first, yarn over, yarn to the front, pick up the next loop, yarn to the back, and then we have our first brioche knit stitch, and I'm going to just make it, then yarn over, and I will go back into the same stitch to increase it. So those 2 stitches here are now my increase stitches. Then yarn over and to the front, pick up the next loop, yarn to the back, and pick up our final brioche knit stitch, yarn to the front, and pick up all the 3 loops. And we are already good to go with the next round. Again, this is always the round that we have to be a little bit careful to pick the right stitches. So again, yarn over and to the front, pick up the first loop. Then here we have a full brioche knit stitch, yarn over, pick up the next loop. And here we had our increases, or our increase from the previous round. So I'm just going to pick up this 1 loop and knit stitch, then yarn over to the front, pick up the next loop. And here we have our final brioche knit stitch. And from there, it's the same like we had it before, just with 2 stitches more. And again, our sequence is 20. And maybe I'll show you again. So here in the previous round, this is where we increased, so we get like 2 stitches out of 1. And then you just count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, which is right here. And after that, we just made the next increase. So those 10 stitches are the 20 rounds, our sequence, and then you're good to go. So I'll let you to it. You make it until you have the width of your scarflet that you desire. You will see me back once I have completed my 9th brioche knit sequence. And then we take the measuring tape to see how long the scarflet is, to decide how many just regular rounds we add to that last sequence, until we then start with the decreases. Have fun! So here's where I am. I'm now at the point where I finished the sequence of my 8th increase. I know when you saw me the last time I told you to make 9 increases, but after this 8th increase sequence I decided to keep it in that width, because I think otherwise it would be probably too wide around my neck. And here's how the whole piece now looks. As you can see, you have this beautiful growing, very organic pattern. The border looks super clean and crisp, and of course it gets smaller and smaller. And you may have stopped after the 7th increase or after the 6th increase. That's absolutely fine, because now what we are going to do is to add the middle part. And once we have the middle part, we basically make the exact same piece again, just reverse. And first, let me take my measuring tape to see where we were. So my neck size was around 54 to 64, 18 inches. And now, without stretching the piece, I'm at around 52, 54, 52, which is about 21 inches. So this is like a number that I definitely write down somewhere. So when I now take the 54 times 2, because the exact same piece will be on the end of our scarflet, this means I have 108 centimeters. So in the end, I have, here's the 108, and the initial one is 138. So it's basically 11 inches or 12 inches that I have to add as a middle part. So this is definitely something to keep in mind. Or if you want to have it in centimeters, it's 30 centimeters. What we could do is to just see how big one of the increases are. No, it's more 6.5. So what I will do is basically add 5 segments as my middle part. You add segments as many as you wish, right until you would then go back the other way. So it's really like a balance of how long you want to have your scarflet to be. You can, of course, always wrap it around your neck to see how it looks, how long you would make the middle part, because you always know how long the final part or the third part of the scarf will be, because it will be exactly the same like the beginning. So we are just filling up the middle space. And for that, you also have multiple options. Actually, you can just continue, in my case, for example, with the 8 brioche knit stitches, or we alternate increases and decreases. That's an option. So you can keep it all as is and then just have a longer middle part, or you do decreases, like 1 decrease and then 20 rounds later after the next sequence, then you increase again, so you get back to the original brioche knit stitch count. That's really up to you. I'm now going to show you how to make a decrease. We are going to need the decreases anyway afterwards, so I will show you now how I make the decreases. If you Google brioche knitting decreases, you will get like books of possibilities. Left-leaning decreases, right-leaning decreases, brioche knits 2 together, whatever things. I tried a few of them. Some of them I thought were very complicated, so I'm just going to show you my preferred way to make a decrease, because it's quite easy and it works beautiful also with the pattern. So first I'm going to, of course, make my 3 knit stitches here in the beginning, And then we start with our regular pattern. And I will make my decrease probably here, or you can also choose those two. Let's choose the next ones. That's absolutely fine. So when we arrive here, and those 3 stitches, the 2 brioche knit stitches and this pick up stitch here, we are going to decrease now. And the way we do it is quite easy. We pick up the first stitch, pick up the next stitch, and pick up our next brioche knit stitch. And now what I'm going to do is to take the brioche knit stitch over our pick up loop right here, and then I'm going to hold the pick up loop, take the hook out, and pick that loop up just like this. So now I only have my brioche knit stitch right here and the pick up loop, and now I'm going to yarn over and pull through all of those loops to decrease it. And you can see it looks pretty similar to how we increased, and I thought this would look the best as a decrease. And like this, all the following decreases, so when we go down or go back to end our scarflet, will be the same. But of course, feel free to check out all those other methods of decreasing brioche stitches, and then choose the way that you like best. And from there, we can just continue in our regular pattern. If you made the decrease, make sure to like push those loops and stitches a bit more together so you don't create any unnecessary gaps. But everything else is pretty much the same. And we can then continue here with our next sequence of 20 stitches. And after that, after this sequence is done, I am going to increase again. I will increase somewhere here or there just to like balance it out a little bit and keep it as flowy as possible. And now we go back. Here we also don't have to take care that much where we are and that we get all the loops, because for the decrease it's no issue at all. But again, I'm going to hold those loops a little bit tight just in case. Here was the decrease, and then I'm going to pick up the loop and take it back. And that was already it. So really no issue at all. And let's see, here's our decrease. This will now push a little bit more downwards like this. So it really like hides underneath this strand of brioche knit stitches. And like that we continue. And as I mentioned before, after this sequence, I'm going to increase and then decrease again until I have like my middle part complete. And this is where I'll meet you back. So welcome back. I just finished my middle part. I think in the end, I ended up making 6 sequences, so 3 with decrease and 3 increases again. I just wanted to be sure that in the end my piece would be long enough to fit my big neck because of course I'm quite a tall guy, and because of that I might need a little bit of a longer scarflet. For some of you, what's a scarflet for me is probably a full scarf for you, but so be it. I hope you were following the pattern and the brioche knitting the way that it works for you and your neck, because now I will start decreasing, and I will basically do it in the reverse way like we started. So every 21st round I'm going to decrease, and we will always decrease in the center. And of course sometimes you have 3 on one side and 4 on the other side. That's absolutely fine. Just pick one of the center pieces, just like we had it in the beginning. And I already showed you how to make the decreases, but I will just show it to you again with this next round. The beginning is again the same with our 3 knit stitches, and then we continue with our brioche, and right until I'm at the center. 1, 2, 3. And now I will decrease the 4th and the 5th. First up, the next brioche knit stitch we are just going to pick up. Then we are going to pick up the next loop in between, and then we pick up the next brioche knit stitch, and then we are taking those last 2 loops and put it over our middle pickup loop, hold it, grab it, so that way the second brioche knit stitch now lies on top of this pickup loop, and then we can yarn over and brioche knit stitch through the 3 loops on the hook, just to like put it over the other ones like this. And again, try to keep everything a little bit closer together, and from there we can then just continue. Again, I'm pushing the stitch a little bit towards the other ones just to give it the direction where I want to have it. That's the great thing about brioche, because you can do a lot by moving the stitches a little bit to create those shapes and curves. And this was already it. So now I can do the same for the next 19 rounds before I then do my next decrease. And we do the decreases right until we have the same thing like we had in the beginning, just with the I-cord border. And then the only thing we have to take care of are the yarn ends, and then your scarflet is done. So see you once the other side looks exactly like this one. So the end is near. Only a few more steps, and here was my last sequence just with the I-cord border. And now we are going to finish the side off, and for that we are going to pick up all the 3 loops in the beginning from our 6 loops, and then we are going to knit stitch all 3 of them together. Then take the yarn to the front, pick up the next 3 loops just like we had it, and pull it through. And now we do the same thing with the other 3 loops. We knit stitch all 3 of them together, and then we take the yarn to the front and pick up the last loop. Now pull it through, turn it one last time. And then we are going to take both of those loops. And first we are going to take the second loop through the first loop and then yarn over and pull it through. And now we can cut it and then just take it through. You can of course release the helper yarn and just tighten it up so that you get a nice ending. And now we can take the yarn needle and what we are going to do is we are just taking the yarn end right in our I-cord, because this is nothing else than a tube, so we can easily put the yarn end in there and just put it in, drag a little bit, and then just cut it off. And the same thing we do in the beginning, or with our beginning yarn end. And what we are also going to do is to just pick up the loop on one side and make a knot, just so that we can put it a little bit more together. And I just make another knot in there, and then again we put it in our I-cord just all along. And here we don't even have to cut it. It goes directly in. That's fine with me. And is complete. And I absolutely love how this looks. I mean, so pretty. All those lines, and in the end you can then just make a knot, for example. I think it's super pretty. It's super light and easy breezy, springy brioche. I absolutely love it. And I hope that you do too. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you will have fun nooking yourself such a beautiful brioche scarflet. You can also wear it just like this. Just saying. And if you made one of those, make sure to post it under my community tab so we can all see it. And of course, I hope to see you back again next time, only at the Totally Fierce Crochet channel. Maybe with nooking, maybe with crochet, who can say? But until then, happy nooking! Bye! You can also use it as an ear warmer. Cause why not? Now if this would be really red, then I would be Little Red Riding Hood again.